Before we get started, I would like the audience to know that this show will be particularly different and it'll be set apart from our usual all sports topics like we've done in the past. Although sports will undoubtedly be touched upon, this show will mainly be focused on the racial tension that is staring out our nation, our American society, right in the face. Even in this rippling and tumultuous time, I've always taken pride in our commitment to being raw and authentic. Tonight, I would like to reaffirm to all of you that watch this show and know these show's topics, they will be unadulterated and at times even tough to speak on. You see, I believe that only through intimate and real conversation comes true understanding. Once we start to understand where we come from, our struggles and our pains, our hopes and our dreams, only then do we start to break down those walls of fear. Therefore, tonight, we come together to bring everyone along this powerful conversation between two humble servants and one very special guest. Please join us as we do our part to further the conversation in an effort to turn apathy into empathy, ignorance into knowledge, and ultimately unrest into peace. Thank you.
Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
How we doing, fellas? Ma'am?
Good. So, John?
What's up? What's up? Everybody, we know Mr. Khoa, man to my left, puts it together on the ones and twos. How y'all like these new digs, man? This is our first new show. Like
This is cool, man.
Christmas moment, this show with this very special guest to my left, Miss Shalon Mbaye.
Yes.
We call her Shay, but thank you so much. But I want to actually give you a proper introduction. You are somebody that, to me, is a woman that's intelligent, beautiful, and so powerful with the way you speak. Just being around you, like seriously, just being around you, I listen to you and I see how you navigate through the room when you meet new people, and the way you speak to them disarms them. And that's one of the reasons I brought you here, is because I've rarely met somebody like you that can get into tough conversations, and even with the most stubborn and hardest people, you have great, thoughtful conversations. And so, I look at you as somebody that's, so motivating to talk to, somebody that's willing and hungry to learn about everybody's point of view, everybody's walk of life. And I couldn't say enough. And when I thought about this topic and what we're gonna delve into tonight, you were one of the first people that came to mind. And I speak so honestly when I say that. So thank you so much for joining us, Miss Shay.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate
you for having me.
I appreciate it. So we're just gonna get into it. There's a question that I've built in my head as we have seen all these things unfold in our nation right now. And that question is, why do you think that what happened with George Floyd put this nation in a state of, like, I guess, a new consciousness of, okay, this stuff is really happening. But why did it take this moment as a tipping point when you had examples like Philando Castillo, Breonna, Trayvon Martin, Ahmaud Arbery, and Eric Garner, and so many different examples? Why was this it?
I feel like it was a culmination of things, but in the simplified version, it was basically just a perfect storm. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. This is nothing new. This is the same story over and over. And I feel like because of many different factors, people are just fed up. They're just over it. And the video itself speaks for itself. There are no words that need to be said. I think that anybody that watches the video can't help but just see the injustice of it. There are no buts.
Right, for sure. That whole notion of the picture speaks 1,000 words. I could only watch that one time, and that was enough for me. I watched it, and I said in my head, we are watching, and I was watching it with my son. I didn't know the extent of that video. It was going to get to that point. And I remember vividly thinking, hey, we're watching somebody lose their life right in front of us. And I was like, I didn't even have the time to register that my son was right next to me watching this. But I felt like when I was in that moment, I felt like this was so powerful that we needed to see this, that even my son at a young age, I didn't want to shelter him from that moment, because this is something that I think that we have almost been able to deny in a sense, even with video camera. But that moment with everybody being home during the COVID scare, everybody being unemployed, we had that time to sit in it and actually kind of register it in our head. So when it came time to feel a certain way, everybody came out and protested. And one thing that I am so proud of is our city. Our city of Houston had a protest of 60,000 people that came out. So strong. Khoa and Chris and a number of people that I know of took that day off and went out there and represented for the city of Houston. And I'll give my gratitude, and I appreciate my appreciation to the city of Houston as a community, because the mayor was lockstep with the police chief and also the organizers of that protest. They all got together like, let's take a moment and go out there and speak for the people that can't have that voice up until now. So now, do you think these protests, they have brought change, like real change?
I mean, if you see where it is now, they're talking about defunding police. That was never even a conversation prior to it. Not necessarily for Houston, but just nationally, anywhere. So, I mean, there's different conversations being had. I mean, but you also have the thing that's going on in Seattle. You heard about that?
Which one?
They basically blocked off a street for 7 blocks, and now it's like what would you call that? It's like its own republic within a republic.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's super crazy.
Hold on. So, who's in that block? And who's taking it over?
It's basically, I wouldn't say protesters. I think it's like, in my mind, it has to be the extreme left, because they're taking the extreme left,
like Antifa.
Maybe more. Oh yeah, Antifa, but probably more extreme than that. But they basically sectioned off 7 blocks, and they have a warlord. They call him.
What?
Swear to God. Swear to God. They have a warlord who basically controls or delegates within that republic within a republic. How it's lasted this long, I don't understand.
I don't see how it hasn't been more news.
No, but Seattle got
there's been some news about it. They're calling it the autonomous zone.
Thank you.
The Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
It's right in front of the Capitol. Mm-hmm. it's right in front of the Capitol.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And people have tents up, and it's crazy. And they eat. The funny thing is, how they talk about borders in America? They have borders. You have to they have people you have to go through to get.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the extreme.
My mind is literally blown. I don't know what to think of that. I haven't registered it yet completely.
Yeah. I think they're trying to even expand it as far as they can.
Yep.
So there's no cops inside?
No, I just told you they have I don't know why they call him a warlord. I don't know if that's like some kind of label the press gave him or something. But I've seen the interview with the man, and something like one though for sure.
Yeah, they said that there's a Trader Joe's in that zone that is temporarily closed for the moment.
They probably can't get some work.
Wow. So what is their objective though? Like, what is the ultimate goal for them?
Republic without police, where the people police themselves. In my mind, that's what I got from it.
Huh. That is crazy. Now, do you think that in any way, shape, or form this will turn out to be a good thing?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it's not even gonna last. You know, the clock has started on that. The fact that it's lasted this long, I don't even understand how that's possible. But no, I don't think. Like I said, I think that's way, way to the extreme. When in actuality, we should be talking about police reform and mitigating excessive brutality and all these kind of things like that. That started this in the first place.
Now I like that. I like the way that you said that. Okay, so one thing is when we talk about defunding police, right? Can we get on I guess an agreeable definition of what that is?
Defunding police is basically taking money out of police, and they said that they're going to redistribute it amongst communities and different programs and stuff within the communities that probably receive the lesser of it. The people who are probably reaping the worst of the police brutality, they want to take that money from the police and then redistribute it amongst programs within those communities.
Wow.
I think,
Okay.
I mean, at least from what I read, that's what they plan to do with it. But I don't agree with that either, though.
You don't agree with that?
Nah.
Why not?
Because I don't think the problem is money. I think the problem is justice and accountability.
Right. 100%.
That is the problem. There's a lack of a
Well, there is, and I always thought, well, where's internal affairs? Where's the whole that supposed oversight of the police department? And isn't that what it's intended for? For examples like this, for examples of like, hey, this has gone to the extreme as far as like the police overstepping their boundaries, overstepping their authority to the point. I mean, I don't think that it's something that has grown because of I guess how's the right way to put it? I think police brutality has always been here.
Absolutely.
The only difference is there's cameras.
Absolutely.
Right? That's capturing it.
Absolutely.
Right? So when I say, the police brutality and almost like it's an augmentation of what's been going on. It's not that. It's just that I thought that the whole reason of an oversight for the police department was to counter these examples. So if we already have programs in place or we have departments like internal affairs, then why don't we kind of look at them and be like, what's going on?
Internal affairs is basically just a database. All they do is take statistics and take numbers and all this stuff and compile it into a list, and there comes a report. But it doesn't matter because it keeps happening. Until you attack the actual problem, nothing will change. It's reform that we need, not numbers. We got numbers. We got videos. We got names, statistics all day.
So when you say reform, like what are we looking at here? Like
In my opinion, for sure, what I want to start with is qualified immunity. Qualified immunity basically gives them leeway to make a mistake and get off. That's where you need to start. Start there. Because if me and you make these kind of mistakes, we ain't getting no passes. We're not getting no passes. We're not getting no help, no nothing. And I feel like that's where it should start. Everybody should be accountable for their actions. I understand it's a high-risk job. I understand you have to make split decisions, but
split-second decisions.
Yeah.
So now, another reason I asked you to be here is because you have a military background, and you brought up something right now that said, you're in a high-pressure, high-stress situations where you have to make those quick decisions, and in the military, aren't you trained to be in those situations? So when you're a cop or somebody of the police force, aren't they trained to be constantly in that situation?
I mean, you're trained to be in that situation, but you're still human. Okay. So you'll still make mistakes. People, soldiers, cops, everybody's gonna make mistakes. But the difference is, what I found funny when I came home was like, the mistakes that they get away with, we would never get away with.
As a soldier?
As a soldier, if you fuck up, if you mess up, you will be held. But it's different though. because there's military law
Okay.
and then there's
Civilian law.
civilian law.
Right.
And ours is held by it's like it's a court, but it's like a tribunal. But what I'm saying is you don't get passes. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake and you pay for it.
But see, I think like actual war is even a bigger like situation where your life is really in the throes of balance, like as far as the police force, you're more, to me, what I thought, and I've always thought the tenets were to serve, to protect,
That's what they say.
and to just be a guidance for the community. And now it's almost like it's us versus them, and that's such a bad way to look at it. But I really feel like I'm on edge every time I but like I'm ever in a conversation with the badge.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's more like I'm so worried about that moment where it's like a gotcha moment. Where I'm getting a ticket, a citation, or I'm getting arrested, and so it's like it's almost like an antagonistic relationship that I have with police, and I think that the community as a whole feel like that, as opposed to where when I grew up, when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, and I looked at cops, I always looked at them as like somebody with, maybe that's just because it's like an altruistic view, but excuse me, I looked up to them because I thought they were servants for the community.
Yeah. They do the hard job.
I'm sorry?
They do the hard job.
Right.
They walk into fire, not away from it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, but to hear that the military holds the soldiers, to a higher standard kind of baffles me, because, like, again, I said, they're actually trained for war as opposed to trained to be with civilians.
Yeah, but we have a lot of training, and we go through the process, like the basics and the AIT, and we have constant training all the time, like on a weekly basis for different things. But at the end of the day, if you make a mistake that takes somebody's life, ain't nobody throwing you a life vest. Ain't nobody gonna try to champion you. You take your bid and you go to Leavenworth. Like, that's that part. So I just feel like it should be equal like that on the civilian side.
To me, that's the main thing I think about when I think about police reform and what would make change and what needs to change. And I think it has to be on a completely institutionalized level, like from top to bottom. Is, when you look at, every police department more or less is run differently because they kind of have their own rules, but they kind of follow the same structure though.
Yeah.
And when Shay was talking about qualified immunity, like they can get away with so much because of like police unions, because of what they keep everything in house. Even like there's nobody policing the police. And so even looking at, I know singling out, but like Derek Chauvin, right? In his rap sheet and his rap record, why was he even still allowed to be on the street if he had a record before of abuse and of his abuse of power, And so if that won't fly in the military, why should it fly in the police, in any police department, right? So I just think that's what it's really going to need to take to change, because the more and more I hear about from what it's like being in their shoes, and I try to think of it that way too, like John, you like to play devil's advocate a lot, like what it's like to be in uniform, in their shoes, how it's different, the job that they have to do, right? So I'm not at all unempathetic to what they have to do and how they can serve. And I don't think anybody is, for the most part, but it's the times where we see the abuse of power. It's the times we see that they are clearly guilty of breaking the law that they're trying to enforce on people, and they're trying to serve, but they're not getting the same treatment as any other civilian would, as far as when it comes to repercussions. And so that's, I think, where people are really most displeased about, and see that needs to change. And and on all levels, I think that they have just been protected for so long, and I don't believe that all cops are bad. I I would never say that. But so many good cops out there don't do the right thing to speak up, to speak out against, because in the police force, in the police departments, that's almost as bad as or worse than committing a crime, is to speak up on somebody else committing a crime.
Did you hear about did you hear Dave Chappelle's 824 video?
846. Yeah.
846, excuse me.
That's his time of birth. Don't get it wrong.
All right. So, they had the policeman come out, and he came out against his white counterpart.
Yeah.
She was, I guess, kicked the guy when he was down.
From what he says, I haven't
handcuffed or
researched it,
something
but
like
yeah,
that?
she kicked him or something in the head
So
while he was
he
handcuffed.
went and told on her,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
and went through every
Yeah.
avenue. He got fired.
Yeah.
And he literally waged war on his
Police officers, yeah.
police
Yeah.
covers, and that was crazy. I
It
whenever he was going through the story, and I was listening to Dave Chappelle talk, and he said in an anonymous tone that he was going to wage war, but he went to see. I guess I don't know if he had something to do with the particular cops, but he killed 2 cops as they were, I guess, blindsided in their patrol car, and then he killed another policeman's daughter, and
Yeah.
they found him in a cabin or a bunker, and they just
Yeah.
tore him to shreds.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Swiss cheese.
that's his words.
Yeah.
So it does seem, because I was thinking, when George Floyd situation happened, I was thinking one of the first thoughts afterwards was, where are the cops to speak out? Because if they don't turn around and speak out against this brutality that is happening in front of our face, in front of the nation, then you are going to leave open the opinion of what people have been saying for a long time. And like cops, like this, well, the way, I don't like to be so general about it, but when people look at a group of people, say by race or by any type of affiliation, one bad apple means the whole group is bad, right? But that's the way we're gonna look at cops now, because if you, as a cop that's good, don't speak up against bad situations like that, then you lead people to believe the same, I guess, the way of thinking about your group that you thought about our group. And that's just, unfortunately, in our society, I really believe that we've become so like left or right or yes or no. It's no middle ground,
The moderates are dead.
And so it's to me, it's keeping us separate, when I think unity is actually the best way to go about these things. And if you can keep things separate, and I don't know if how deep we want to go into the rabbit hole, but that keeps the system the way it is. So when I say the system, I think certain things are in place to keep communities down, to keep us like in like, for a perfect example, the African American community, with like systems like gerrymandering, with systems like 3 strikes and you're out and you go to prison, and
Prison reform, that's a whole nother conversation.
Right,
Prison
right.
reform is a whole nother conversation.
And so just keeping us separate on those ideals it deters us from going forward and saying like, hey, we need to look at this prison system and how we go about putting people in prison and how we go about rehabilitation and stuff like that. And it's just, it leads us to nowhere. Why do you think that there's so many, at this point, it's not just black and white.
No, it's not.
Excuse me, it's not just black people that are protesting. It's a lot more white people. It's a lot more Asian people. It's a lot more Hispanic people that are standing right there next to our black brethren that says, this isn't right. Why is it taking up to this moment to get us as more than just, the black community, but everybody involved?
Well, like I said, I feel like it's been a pattern that's been here for decades and decades. But there's something about that video. That video hit me on like many levels. It hit me, one, as a black person in America. Then it hit me as a mother. When he called out for his mother
for sure
before he passed out with the 2-3 minutes out, it just breaks your heart. It just hits you on different levels. I feel like you can't be human and see that video and not feel some type of way. It's just no way. And I feel like that's what brought everybody out, all races, all sexes, age groups, demographic, everything. Because you can't see that and not feel something. And I feel like it's something that's been happening forever, but there's something about video. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I feel like a video is worth 1,000,000. Like, do you know what I mean?
Right, 100%.
You can't see that and not feel that person's pain. I don't care. Honestly, I don't care what he did outside of like point a gun at a police officer, putting any kind of like aggravated thing. I don't care what he did. Who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that?
No. I
And you can't even say that you didn't know, because you had several civilians on the curb telling them, yo, he's unconscious. Stop.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of things rubbed me wrong about that man before I even knew about all the different things he had on his record prior to it. But just looking at how he was looking in the camera with his hands in his pocket, what are you gonna do to me? And what? You know what I'm saying? And then I watched this thing on I can't remember if it was Fox or whatever like that. No, it was Fox, but it was an interview with one of the other police officers' lawyer. And that man said something to the sway of, well, if it was so bad, why didn't the civilians do something about it?
what?
Like, you would think it's on the partners to do something about it. He was basically trying to take the liability off his client and say that if it was so bad, why weren't the people around them doing it? You want us to rush police officers? People die for less, and you want us to rush them? Mm-hmm. With what?
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
if your partner can't do it, you want me to do it?
So what do you think about people coming out against the people that were recording?
What do you mean coming out against
Like
the people that were recording?
they say you should have done something. Instead of recording, you should have done something.
Yo, what can we do? What can anybody do? No, it's not me. What can anybody do?
I thought of it, man. I thought of the same thing as I was watching that video. I was like, man, you could only imagine like what would I have done if I was there? What could you have done? Because in that moment you try to assess everything you see. At first, you see it happening, and as it's escalating, you're probably just like, okay, well, where is this going? And then as it gets worse, it's just a state of panic that everyone's probably in. And everyone, like Shay said, man, you already know people have gotten killed for much less.
Far less.
So
Far less.
if you are rushing towards 4 cops at full speed, whether you're armed or not, right? I could have nothing on me at all, and I'm just trying to tell them to get off him. But if I rush him and I push a cop off, which is technically, looking back on it now, saving someone's life.
Right.
Yeah.
But is that how they're gonna see it?
But you know when you bring that up about saving somebody's life, I mean it's such a bad way to go, right? But if he would have lived, this wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't have been to the forefront of the nation to be like, listen, you can deny
Yeah.
all you want. You can deny every situation ever in the past and say, but this, but that, but this. You could not look away from this and leave, like you said, without that emotion and saying, you know what? Hey, wake up. Like
Enough's
something like
enough.
this.
Yeah.
Enough's
Yeah.
enough. Enough's enough.
So, yeah, and you're right, and it sucks to say that. I'm not weighing the two, but yeah, if that had happened, right, what do you think would have happened? Because it would have been a very different past couple of weeks.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Who's to say? Who's to say if that would have even made the front lines of the news? Like it
Right, exactly.
it wouldn't have got as much publicity or whatever. It would have been swept under whoever would have been. Let's say it was me. I'd probably been detained, if not shot,
Probably
arrested,
shot.
and
Probably
but
shot.
you know what I mean. Like it just doesn't make any sense because now it doesn't. When you were talking about it, I was like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
How can you like not see somebody as a human, as everybody else is seeing.
Oh,
When you're watching that video, that's why it strikes so much. And Shay said it earlier of the reason why this was such a tipping point. It's because it was such a perfect storm. And it's nothing new, but it's such a perfect storm of things that are happening in the world, just with Corona and everything, and us being kind of caged in and locked in into ourselves, consuming so much more media, listening and watching more, having that time to kind of sit there and reassess our own lives, and then seeing something like this, it's just like, it's a cry out to humanity, really, just to wake up, and it is unfortunate that it hasn't happened on this scale until now. I will agree with that, and I think most people will agree with that, and I think that's why it is also so eye-opening, because the more and more that you are educating yourself about this case, you find that it's not new. It's not something that was a one-off case that this just happened out of nowhere. We have to do something. I'm like, no, the more you find out about it, the more you find out all the injustices that have happened in the past 400 years. We're talking about oppression, right? We're talking about 400 plus years. And I'll just say something real quick, just like as far as like when you talk about the scale of people, the different types of people, and me myself being a first generation Asian American, I saw a huge response from the Asian American community, as well as every community, the Asian Americans specifically. And I was so proud that we were educating ourselves and speaking up, because for us, I think a large part of who we are as a people and how we kind of go about our lives, especially like kind of like the first generations and whatnot. Our parents and stuff, they moved to America as immigrants. They wanted to start a better life, have the American dream. Yeah. The American dream, start their own business or just work a 9 to 5 and just kind of like have a better future for their family, for their kids, than they would have had back home or whichever country they came from, right? And so that, I think, mentality was kind of just so ingrained in us to just keep your head down, work hard, don't stir the pot, don't ruffle any feathers, and the way that and I'll speak for myself, and I think a lot of people as well. I mean, my parents and stuff, like the system. When you talk about the system, it is not fair. It is unfair in a lot of ways. I know it sounds very general and broad, but it is. When how many times you hear people say the system is broken. It's not broken. It works exactly the way it's intended to work because of who it was created by. And so
say that one more time.
Yeah.
Say that.
That's a word right there. Yeah. That's a word right there.
The system is not broken. So when you really look at it, it works exactly the way it was supposed to. These little loopholes and whatnot were put there in place, and unless you are open-minded enough and smart enough to look for those things to make those changes, they're not going to change on a wide-scale level, right? Yeah. So going back to what I was saying is, I think in large part, Asian Americans, we're not ignorant to those things. We play the system to survive, to make it through. We don't, like I said, don't ruffle any feathers. And whatever you have set up, whatever we can make it work in our favor, we'll do that. Yeah. And so I think in large part, that's why so many years and so many times, so many instances, these injustices and these things have come up, and you hear us, not when you don't hear us, because we're quiet, because we tried not to, like I said, ruffle any feathers. And so the change in it now, after hearing about George Floyd and so many eyes being open, and it sparked something for us to actually speak up. And not only that, but I hear a lot of it is it's a lot of self-reflection. It's talking to our parents and our elders and anybody that we know that has had that mindset as well, that had a prejudice mindset. Yeah. And unfortunately it is there in our own communities, and we have to do our own self-correcting with our own people first. It starts, what is it, that phrase? It starts in your own, in your own home, 100%. Right? And I firmly believe that as well. And it's something, it's an ugly and tough conversation, but it has to happen because it'll never change if it doesn't happen.
I've seen a bunch of posts on Instagram and stuff, and they there's like different avenues of how you can actually help.
Yeah,
get
donate or
involved
protest.
and like more than just protesting and stuff like that. Reading books and literature. But to that point is, I think, like you were saying, we all have innate prejudices.
Yeah.
We all have things that we think about a group of people or even a person.
Yeah.
But I think the way we go about that and evolve is it has to start at home. One thing that I think that I've always taken with Malcolm X and his speeches and his teachings and his writings is when a white person were to walk up to him and is like, "Hey, I want to march with you. How can I help? How can I get involved?" He'd be like, "No. We got this. You go back to your people
And teach
and
them.
you teach them. You talk to them. That's how you help us." And I think that's, in a small microcosm, that's what we do. We have to do with our own kids and our own families.
Yeah, our
we
parents and-
we hear prejudice or we hear racist remarks. We got to turn around and be like, "Whoa, let's make this a teaching moment."
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as the young age that my son is in, I have to sit there and have these hard conversations with him, real conversations.
Yeah.
That these things do exist, but it's up to us to change that point of view.
Absolutely.
Now, another thing, do you believe that on a level of like a personal level, there's a difference between racism and prejudices?
Yeah, of course.
And
So I believe racism is generalities based on skin color, period. So it's an all or nothing theory. It's you're not this because you're this, you're this because of that. Prejudice is, I think that's just human nature. I think that's almost like survival, the most primitive in us, right?
Oh, wow.
You deal
Nice.
with like certain situations in life. You're like, all right, if I see that person, if I see something like that again, I know better. I'm gonna move around. I think prejudices are more so it could be taught, or it could be like learned lessons throughout life.
Right.
But I think that's more so like survival instincts. There's no reason why you would think like all Jews are bad, or
Right.
like all blacks are criminals,
Right.
all whites are racist. That's just racism, period. There's no room for that. It's an ideology that needs to
So-
die.
My friend had a good point. Calvin were actually talking about this, so do you believe that anybody can be born racist
Absolutely not.
or with prejudice?
Absolutely not.
Because I believe the same thing. I don't believe that people can just be born with this hatred in their heart or in their brain without it being taught to them somehow, whether it's directly or indirectly, with the environment you grew up in, with the TV that you were allowed to watch, or with the people you were around that spoke to you. Like, I don't believe that can just come out of completely nowhere, that it's just already ingrained in you.
For sure.
Can I be like honest? I am not bothered by racist people. And I'll say it like this. If on a personal level, I get cut off or I cut somebody off or whatever, and they call me a fucking spick or whatever derogatory term, I laugh and I walk. He does not bother me, not one bit, right? And that's on a personal level, right? Because, and this is why, he does not affect my life in the slightest, right? So that racist person or that racist remark, whatever, does not affect me in a sense of like, he's not going to keep me from another job. He's not going to, affect me in my ability to make it in this world.
Yeah.
Now,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, I was gonna say, but that's a slippery slope though. So what happened if that racist that cut you off is your local politician?
Right,
Or-
we don't
or-
know that though. But
or your
that's,
son's
wait,
teacher.
but that, I can't assume that.
No,
I can't
you
go
can't.
on assuming that. But here's where this is where I have a huge problem with racism and racists when it comes to them trying to take away my freedoms. For example, the Cooper situation, where this African American guy was bird watching in the park of New York, right? So the lady was like, "If you don't get away from me," because she was walking the dog without a leash, and all he said was,
Put your dog on a leash.
"Put your dog on a leash." And she said, if you don't get away from me, she was still kind of bothered, in a bothered but calm voice. She said that she was going to call the police. As soon as she called the police, he's like, go ahead. Because he knew it wasn't all right. It's park rules to have your dog on a leash. So he knew he was in the right. So as soon as she gets on the phone, she starts going hysterical.
Acting like he was attacking her. I know. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. She literally, at the very least, knew that her white power, and she was weaponizing her white power, knew that the cop was going to come around and at the very least
Arrested
give him a citation or arrest, because she thought, because of her skin color, and she knew how the police system and the system worked, that he was going to be always looked at as in the wrong, right? But at the worst,
he could have got killed.
He could have got killed.
Got killed.
That right there, oh my God, that is something that I don't know if I could have kept my cool.
What you mean kept your cool?
If somebody
what are you gonna do?
Try to take my freedom?
Well, no. If the police are there, you can do your point. But I mean, what are you gonna do when it's just you, her, and her dog?
No. That's the thing. Like, he kept this cool. He kept it. The moment somebody tries to take my freedom away, right? I don't know if I have the ability to keep my cool, because I don't know if he knew. Maybe he did, because he grew up in that society. But I don't know if he knew that that's what her intentions were. I would have recognized it immediately.
Yeah, but John, like, I know you say that because, I mean, we're sitting here watching it on a screen, but it's also, that to me is just playing exactly into her cards. She's weaponizing her white privilege.
Right.
White female privilege at that. And, you know.
That maybe I should have said white privilege instead of white power.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was, you know, what I took away most from that, and that I was so appalled and offended by that. That it was so easy to weaponize that. She knew exactly what she was saying, and knew the effect that it would have, and just by saying that, and it was like, it's almost like you're threatening, like I'm threatening you by calling the cops, because you know how they feel about you and your kind. And she's using that and saying, like, an African American man is about to attack me and this and that, you know,
hollering in that video.
Yeah, like yelling.
Yeah.
And you know, like, you can go and listen to Candace Owens talk about all you want and hear her side of shit, and about how this and that, blah 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 blah. Fucking Candace, you know, and I never want to condemn anybody for looking at all sides of the story. I'm not saying that is what's wrong or what I find wrong about what her point of view on anything is. But it's almost like what does it matter? Same thing about how she brought up George Floyd's rap record. Like, what does any of that matter?
Did he do it that day?
I don't give a shit about what priors he had or what he was doing. But even then, you look at what he was doing. He apparently gave a counterfeit bill to a clerk. So the store clerk or one of his employees called the cops on that. Did that elicit the reaction that he got? Did it require for him to take it? Was that proportionate? Hell the fuck no.
Did you see what she said?
Candace Owens?
Yeah.
I see what she said.
So same thing on the Amy Cooper and Christian Cooper, which is very confusing because both Coopers.
Yeah.
That's why I said just the Cooper situation.
You know, you can look at the facts before that happened, before the recording started, about how apparently he was like calling out to the dog or something and doing kind of like some kind of suspect kind of things, or like charging or whatever, right? And so that's apparently why when he started recording that she was so frantic and holding the dog. And, you know, right when I saw the video, so many people were more outraged about how she was treating her dog than the damn phone call.
She had to give the dog back.
Yeah.
She had to get the dog back.
Yeah. And she lost her job, if I'm not mistaken.
No, yeah.
Yeah, for sure she did.
You know, so that's that in itself. Like, I talked to Shay about a little bit about this earlier. You know, like, she's 100% in the wrong. But for all of that to happen, I mean, I am not one to sit here and say that, you know, this is what you have coming to you because of this and this. Like, I don't know. I'm not the judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to that. But, you know, to me, at least, I think that was great that was captured so people can see how their privilege can be weaponized and how it is just about every single day, whether you realize it or not, whether you are conscious of it or not.
That's the
whether
one
you're
thing.
conscious of it or not.
Hell yeah. I don't even think she realized what she was doing.
No, I think she did.
No,
No,
she realized what she was
1,000%
doing.
You
thought
think
she.
so?
Why would you do it? Why would you do it?
What do you mean?
I mean, why would you do it? She knew exactly what. I mean, come on. This is like
That's
an
another
old
fine.
story.
Another Candace Owen thing where she says, "Well, maybe she was just saving them time because when you call the cops and you report when you report something, what do they ask you? Can you describe what he looks like, ma'am? What does the perpetrator look like? What is she gonna say? She's gonna say an African American man. So in like the defense of her, maybe she was just saving time by telling them what he already looks like. But do I think that's what the fuck went through her head?
Absolutely
not.
I think it's subconscious. I don't think she even. I can't speak for her, but I can.
But that's another part of the problem.
Right. What?
She subconsciously knew her privilege and it was racist, or I can't even assume racism or not, but enough to know that that's going to hurt you.
No, exactly. Right. But it's a subconscious weaponization of her white privilege. And that's what I think that, at the very least, that's what it is subconsciously. At the most, it was deliberate.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Now, my question is to you, and that speaks to the system. That's what I'm saying. Like that at the very subconscious level, that speaks to the system.
So we're talking premeditated versus intentional now.
Exactly.
Okay.
So my question to you is this: do you think somebody, because of that type of video or that type of instance, do you think they should lose their job?
What she did?
No, anybody, any racist situation.
Everything is circumstantial. I would have to.
That's the second one that I've seen happen.
In her instance, absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely.
What was her job? What is she?
She worked. No.
Was it real estate? I don't care if she was a dog walker. I don't care.
Okay, so but why do you think she should have lost her job?
Because there's no moral fiber in her. That speaks to her character as a human being. Who does that?
Yeah, but
lose a job.
I understand that.
Because there's no law for calling in fake crimes. So lose her job.
Wow. So hit
it in her pockets. Hit her where it hurts.
So even if it has nothing to do with what she does for work, let's say you were her boss. Let's say she was, I don't know, a real estate agent.
Okay. But most companies, they have things in their bylaws that say you cannot, what is it? Like even in like the league or anywhere, like you cannot pass this line of, what do they call it? Moral conduct?
Okay.
Moral conduct.
Why?
It's in the laws.
Why?
Because number one, it reflects badly on them. They're not trying to lose bread.
Thank you. That's what.
And number two,
that's what.
You're probably a piece of shit. So you should lose your job. No. Period.
I don't think that.
Period. I go for both. She can go. I don't care.
She
can go.
Lose your job.
Go find you another job.
I think that's at the end of the day, and this is what I wanted to bring this up and lead to that. That was my segue. You know how I was trying to be slick with it, but this leads into Colin Kaepernick, right? And since he's a representation of the NFL, I knew the moment he kneeled, you can ask Chris, the moment he kneeled, that was gonna be the last team that he signed for. And I've said that for
said that from like episode 3. I remember that. Yeah.
And I don't think it's I think it's when he did it. The way the rhetoric changed about it being about patriotism, you disrespecting our troops, now you stepping on our flag, you're this, you're that. The way they twisted the narrative, of course he was going to lose his job.
Oh, no, but
you know how people feel about the troops, or at least how they pretend to, but like how people feel about the troops and the flag and all this kind of stuff like that, they have zero tolerance.
So, you know this about me, right? I'm a 49er fan, right?
Okay.
All right. If you don't know, now you know. In the words of Biggie. Right. So, I was a fan of Colin Kaepernick. And so when everything going down, I saw it. I saw the way that I knew the way the system worked was never going to allow him to keep playing like that. But I wanted to know his psyche. What was his thinking, right? So they asked him, why are you sitting? He was actually sitting
I remember.
during the national anthem. So he had a phone call from different people, and they were saying, "Hey, you're sitting, you're disrespecting, you're taking the I guess the narrative of what you're wanting to say, and you're making it to the point where it's almost like unpatriotic, right?"
gonna get drowned
So
out.
he walked up and he literally sought out a veteran, and he asked him different ways, different methods
Yeah.
of respecting, but not letting the message get misconstrued.
Yeah.
So his thing was always about police brutality since day one,
Yeah.
right? He said it in his press conferences and everything. He never came out and said it was about the flag,
Yeah,
right?
of course
But of
not.
course they twist the narrative. So he goes to a veteran, and the veteran said, "Listen, as a show of respect, when somebody either passes away or in the military, or
They take a knee.
they want to give respect to their fellow man
Yeah.
or soldiers, they take a knee, right?" So that's why he took a knee, because he actively sought out a reason.
See, but this is to add context to that situation. He didn't actively seek out that man. After he sat down, because I saw this ESPN interview with that guy that did it specifically, this man, he actually wrote him a letter. And he had all this mail of people that were upset and all this kind of stuff like that. But he got this letter from this man, and this man was basically saying, like, this is how it made me feel. I feel offended. Da, 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 da.
So the soldier,
The soldier
Okay,
said this.
okay.
He sent him out of like thousands of whatever.
right?
He read that. He was like, you know what? I want to talk to this guy. He sought him, that specific man out.
Right.
And
Okay.
then brought him into the fold,
What's his
brought
name?
him to the games and all this kind of stuff like that. And they had this conversation where he basically said what you said. When people die, when we lose people and all this kind of stuff, a way of showing respect is we'll take a knee. And in that way, there is no disrespect being shown.
Exactly.
It's like, it's what you do. And that's when he went about that. But of course, all that gets lost in the narrative.
Nate
The
Boyer,
rhetoric,
Nate Boyer. Nate
Yeah.
Boyer.
retired
Yeah,
Army
exactly.
Green Beret.
yeah, all
Nate
that.
Boyer.
This story, what he was really trying to say, the actual cause, the problem that brings this conversation today, it gets lost. It gets lost in the sauce when you have these people trying to, the spin room, spin that stuff, make it something else.
I'm sorry that I didn't listen to you, and you probably answered this already, but I want this to be on record. No,
Nah.
I really want your answer. And like I said, I'm sorry I didn't listen to you the first time. But the first thing that you said to me when you saw me again, it'd been a little bit of time when the COVID thing, we started reopening and stuff. So the
Yeah.
George Floyd thing had kind of passed a little bit, gave us a chance to breathe, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing that you came to me,
Oh,
and
yeah,
we
I
had
remember,
the
I
first
remember,
conversation
I
about it,
remember.
you said, "So, what do you think? Does this not give Colin Kaepernick?
Does this validate him?
Does this not validate him completely?"
Yeah.
And I don't remember what you said, but I remember like, "Yo, we blew up," like hell yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it completely validates him. Completely validates him.
Yeah, no, that I think that since he was so, I didn't think this before. Now that he's done this, right? Maybe it's a little bit of martyrdom because he lost his career in the NFL. Maybe it's foresight, but now I'm looking at him in the same light as Muhammad Ali when he refused to go to the Vietnam War. I'm looking at him in the same light of somebody that was a part of the civil rights struggle, and like Michael Smith and I think his name was John Carlos, when they held the fist up during the national anthem when they
During
were
the
accepting
Olympics.
their
Yeah.
medal Olympics, Olympic medals, excuse me. And it's so crazy how appropriate when we look back on it, like he was the only one that was right.
And this is a man who had everything to lose. Everything to lose. And in that moment, he stood up for us. Everything to lose.
Am I going too far to say that you look in those in that similar light?
No, he's definitely a leader. He stood up when he didn't have to. And that it almost brings more validation to his cause. He didn't have to. His life is good. He's
Right,
a
right.
football player.
But see, I think he knew he wasn't gonna. I think he knew that as the stance that he was gonna take was going to affect his career no matter what.
Yeah.
So when it came down to he had just gotten his contract.
Yeah,
right?
I remember.
He just got a new contract.
I remember.
Signed for like 40 mil guaranteed, right?
Everything to lose.
And then they asked him to take a pay cut. And he's like, hell no. Because he knew. He knew. And so, you know what? He said, give me my guarantee money and I'm out. He decided to walk away.
Yeah.
And he knew that, he gave the NFL a couple tries. Seattle Seahawks. Now Pete Carroll's coming out, the coach of the Seattle Seahawks coming out, saying that he regretted the situation of not signing Colin Kaepernick. That's kind of, to me, that's just rhetoric. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. But he actually gave the NFL a fair shot to get another contract. Yeah. But he kind of in the books he already knew in the back of his head. So whenever they had the tryouts, right? I'm a man, and I can admit when I'm wrong. I thought he blew off the tryouts. I thought he did a bad job, and I thought the fact that he even spoke about police brutality in the tryouts right afterwards, that was against his cause of getting a job in the NFL. But I think that what he really wanted to do was show the disingenuous nature what the NFL was trying to do as a show of face, as a show of like, let's try to get him signed. Like, he knew that was bullshit. And the NFL knew it was bullshit because of the way that they even if somebody did happen to sign him, he had to go through so many hoops and so many legal legislation that like he wasn't. They were the actual team saying that, well, you can't kneel or you're not gonna kneel, right? And that was like one of the questions. Like, bro, I just lost my job out of kneeling. You think I'm gonna just kneel for you because you know I'm worried about the paycheck? That's not what I knelt. I knelt in the first place. Kneeled, excuse me. But when I look at him now, and I go back and I'm looking at these figures throughout history and stuff like that, I equate him more and more every day to Muhammad Ali, and those civil rights leaders that are participants in sports. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I look at him like definitely as a black leader for sure. He's one of the strong ones, and I also look at him like a martyr because of everything he lost. Despite like whatever the deal that was struck on non-disclosure and stuff, like nobody knows the dollar amount. I'm sure it was good, so he's never gonna starve, but he didn't have to do it. And I think the greatest validation was when I'm not the sports person, but the head of the NFL came out after this George Floyd thing, was like, oh, I wish I would have listened. I wish I would have took y'all more seriously. If there was ever a stamp, that's the stamp.
Really?
I mean, for him to come out and say it, that just shows out.
Oh, I was pissed. I was so pissed.
What part?
Because it's all hypocrisy. It's all about, like you said, representation in your job. And when you had a chance to be somebody that said, you know what, I believe in what you say. I'm not worried about the dollar amount here. I'm not worried about like money in my pockets. Like as soon as the narrative swayed from like, it's about the flag to it's about police brutality, they're all jumping ship. They're all like, oh, let's get on this. Oh, I wish I would have signed him. Oh, we should have listened. No, say his. No, I mean, like I know this is getting overplayed, but say his name. If you're gonna apologize, say Colin Kaepernick. We should have listened to Colin Kaepernick. Like I just like.
But I'm saying that gives me validation that at least they knew, and even if it was all lip service, it's documented. Y'all were wrong. Period.
Let me get some real change. Like hire a couple more.
Well, no, but they also, what did they do? They donated like what over the span of like 5 years? They're gonna do a couple $100 million.
Oh, why? Hold on. Why? They had so Colin Kaepernick literally sued the NFL for collusion. Right?
Okay.
They settled out of court. And one of the stipulations about settling out of court.
He can't speak on it.
Huh?
He couldn't speak on it.
No, was the NFL was gonna donate to certain causes.
Oh, I didn't know.
One of the stipulations that Jay-Z got on with the NFL
I remember that
was
part.
because they were gonna donate to
Yeah, they
certain
were gonna
causes. Like
start
I have to go and get these people into my circle and bring them in, and then let's make a handshake deal. It's not genuine. It's not like, let me, as a person of privilege, let me put the NFL in a situation where it's gonna help people.
I mean, what do you want them to do though? Sometimes the best thing a business can do is give up money. So what do you want them to do? What can they do?
Instead of lip service, have more than 2 black general managers in a league of 30 teams, 32 teams.
I hear you.
Let me have a couple more
I hear
black
you.
coaches.
We'll
When
see.
you're the way that the NFL is structured, your players make up like 60 to 70%
Yeah, I know it.
African American.
I mean,
Right.
he said it in the
And
thing.
it's not a correct representation with the coaches.
with the leaders. I know. Or owners.
So
I know.
let's start with that. And that's all great. I commend anybody that's willing to give money to the community.
Yeah.
But just don't give me money as
and
hush
tell me
money.
to shut up. Yeah, I get
Right?
it. Yeah, I get it.
Shut up and dribble.
Oh, don't start. Don't start.
Oh,
don't start.
man.
Don't start.
That's why, I mean,
That was
you know,
another one.
I know we talk about LeBron a lot and we give him a lot of shit in this podcast, but just more and more as time passes, you know, like I just respect him more as, I mean, even as a player, but like as a human and as like
As a man.
what he stands for as a man,
Yeah.
as a family person. And man, like hearing Dave Chappelle talk about him.
Yeah, I know it.
And it's just like, you know, like we've already all known these things, but, you know, to hear it kind of like all laid out and it's like, man, he's right. You know, like what has he really done wrong for someone that was in the spotlight for as young as he was
Yep.
and for as big of a spotlight that he had
Yep.
and still has and still carries to this day. And he holds himself to the standard of, you know, someone who, yeah, you would want to represent your league, your sport, your
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just the fact that, you know, and this is a little different. We talk about like NBA versus NFL and the difference there and what is allowed when it comes to free speech and to stand up for
Is it
your
a-
rights. And
Is it a big difference? Because, you know, I'm not sports savvy.
Say it one more time.
Is it a big difference between what players can do as far as protesting in comparison to the
I would
NFL
say so,
and the
yeah.
NBA? So who's more
the NBA is way more open.
open? Okay.
So the NFL, so I mean, this was crazy, which is why John had such a reaction to why he did, because of how Roger Goodell is and how the NFL is as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is just such a fucking tight ship
Yeah.
that look at the way the world fucking outraged on one person kneeling. Not only him, but the people that were supporting him had even felt the backlash of that. Eric Reed and other people that were like, it took him how many years to get to get another position on another team, and as he got signed, I remember watching behind the scenes kind of like videos of that, how people were asking even Eric Reed like, "Hey, are you gonna kneel during the national anthem? Are you gonna like?"
Yeah.
And he's just like, "We'll find out when we find out." Right as they were doing the national anthem, I believe he didn't kneel.
The first time or when?
No, I'm talking about when he got back on to, I forget what team it was.
Carolina Panthers.
Was it the Panthers?
Yes.
Yeah, they had just gotten a new new GM, I believe.
Okay.
And the camera right on the GM. I think this is one of their, you know how like everybody's been doing their what do you call it? What's the what is that show that goes behind the scenes before every season with a different team?
I don't know what you're talking about. Like a preseason thing?
Yeah, but like they kind of go behind like during their off season, like while they're training, they do
Hard
like
Knocks?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying? Hard Knocks?
yeah, but it wasn't Hard Knocks. I'm saying I think this past year, everybody, a lot of different teams started to do their own kind of Hard Knocks.
Oh, okay.
style.
I get what you're saying.
So the Panthers had one. I was watching theirs for a good minute, and yeah. So during that episode or whatever, they had a camera right on the GM as the national anthem was going on. Everybody, he was just, his eyes were on Eric Reed. Was like, oh, did he? And actually, you know what? I think he did kneel. I forget if he did or he didn't. But I remember afterwards the general manager saying like, all right, we're still alive. We're still here. Like,
okay, so he is still I don't think he signed yet, but as of last year, he was still kneeling.
yeah. So maybe he did kneel, but I think by then they had kind of lightened up on the policy. Like, I wasn't too sure of how they were with the policy. But anyway, just going back to what Shay was asking about NBA versus NFL. Like, NFL has just been notoriously known for being conservative, and not only that, but like doctoring basically what players and executives and whatnot are allowed to even say and speak up about. So one of the, I forget that this happened. No, I didn't forget that it happened, but I forget. I was reminded again when it happened when they showed the picture recently of Kobe wearing the "I Can't Breathe" shirt.
Yeah.
And I was like, did somebody just Photoshop that?
That's
and
not the same thing.
And I was like, wait, no, that's Eric Garner.
Yeah.
And so there was a protest within players of the NBA. I think Derrick Rose started it.
Okay.
Where players wore a black shirt in white font that said "I Can't Breathe." It's funny, a lot of people were clowning on the font, like, why'd y'all choose that ugly ass font? But anyway, it said "I Can't Breathe," and a lot of players wore that during their like pregame warm up and during the national anthem.
Okay.
While they, so there's that famous picture of a lot of players, namely Kobe Bryant, with his head down, listening to the national anthem, hand behind his back, and it just says "I Can't Breathe." And the picture came out again, resurfaced recently, and it was just so chilling to see. And just again, like one of many factors of the perfect storm. I keep bringing that up, but there's no other way for me to describe where we are, why we are in the space that we are today, because of all these things. Eric Garner happened 5 years ago,
right?
4 years ago,
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
And so that also speaks on the ability that how lax the NBA was about, like, okay, well, yes, you can wear that to commemorate a fallen one of your fallen, even though it had nothing to do with basketball.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas think about all the things in football that they're allowed to do to commemorate anything. It's always something to the military or to breast cancer. They're big on military and they're big on breast cancer, but that's just about it.
Okay.
Those two things.
Yeah.
So
Man, that was like 6 years ago, dude.
It was 6.
Yeah. 24.
2017. Now, when you say the NBA, let's not give the NBA a complete pass. When the NBA
I'm not saying that. Yeah.
When the NBA had a chance to come out because of Houston's own Daryl Morey, he was, what did he say? He actually protested through social media about the treatment of Hong Kong. Was it?
Yes, he said we stand, or I stand with Hong Kong, or we stand with Hong Kong.
Okay.
So the NBA had to kind of like political, like do a little political finagling here to allow somebody to protest that was within their own ranks, which Daryl Morey is a GM for the Houston Rockets. Okay. But at the same time, subdue the Chinese public, because it's an about face to what's going on in Hong Kong is completely against what China wants to.
No, I understand the political part of it. Yeah,
but China brings in 18
heard.
million views.
Yeah, I know. And they probably buy more merch than anybody from what I've seen.
At first, China, I mean, what it seemed like was...
Guess who's their favorite team?
The Rockets. Is it because of Yao Ming?
Yeah.
Is that the only reason?
100%.
I mean, it's a big reason, but we also have a big population here of Asian American, but Chinese American specifically. And then I think Yao was like the big domino that kind of like fell over. And then they just started to fall in love with our players and whatnot. And all American teams, but
like
Rockets,
the way you put that.
Rockets specifically, it was kind of like, that's always going to be like near and dear to them. So to see that relationship kind of just got axed, that was like, whoa.
What did Yao Ming say about it? What was his view personally? His own.
I don't know. You go ahead. I don't.
So what
really
are you
know.
asking me? What's the question?
I'm saying when all this happened, what did Yao Ming specifically say?
Oh no, he was like he said something to the effect that it's unfortunate that somebody would come out, because Yao Ming is a huge diplomat for China, like China the state. The government. Okay. Like he's a big public figure. He's an owner of I think 2 basketball teams now.
Okay.
In China, and whenever there's like sports involved, he's like
The guy
that goes around and stuff.
Gotcha.
He's a huge representation of China. Will you pull up the exact quote though? Because I don't want to.
That Yao said.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to.
So he's part of the system basically in China. So he's like a political figure as well as a entrepreneur and a mascot. Oh, I won't say mascot. That's wrong. Like a public figure, or that.
Yeah.
I want to know what he said though. I'm very interested in his.
He's
take.
a diplomat for sure.
Diplomat. Thank you. That was what I was looking for.
You know, like I think that they tried to play the fence a little bit. You know, the NBA tried to, you know,
let him have his speech.
Let it have the freedom of speech at the same time.
It's a lot of money.
Trying to massage
it's a lot
China
of money.
into thinking that, you know, we'll handle it within ourselves. You know,
Yeah. I didn't even know it was that deep as far as how much money they put into the
that
NBA. I know now.
China took them off the market.
But did they not come back?
No.
That was then.
No.
Oh, it's
this
still
was this year.
Oh,
this
so,
was before the
so
year
it's
started.
still smoke.
So when the NBA was talking about coming back,
yeah.
right, the China said, we're still not putting your games on.
Ooh.
Right? What do you say?
Yeah. I don't know if these are Yao's exact words, but he is. So this was from the official statement from the CBA, which is Chinese Basketball Association, which Yao Ming is president of.
Ooh.
And so the Chinese Basketball Association strongly disagrees with the improper remarks by Daryl Morey and has decided to suspend exchanges and cooperation with the team.
The team or the entire NBA? Everybody?
Well, the Rockets like cut off. Like,
yeah.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of
NBA,
money,
we
baby.
can still have conversations with, but
Oh, that's a lot of money though. That's why it hurts. That's why it hurts.
But we're going to further into that, you know, in that rabbit hole, so to speak. And when he brought up the military and causes like breast cancer, the NFL does that because more so than I think any league, their population and of fans are a lot of white people, right?
Okay.
So they want to placate to them, and they want to make sure that they're included, right? So when I say that they're only playing to the narrative, it's like kneeling is okay now. Because we have such a visual representation
How you
of
gonna argue
exactly the exact stance that Colin Kaepernick was doing,
You can't argue it.
right? So that's when they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, let's get on board now."
Do you really think that they didn't believe that police brutality was a thing though?
It wasn't enough though. Think about it.
There wasn't enough visual. Just say that,
Right,
Because it was
100%.
definitely enough.
Right.
I mean,
No, it was enough now because the people have said enough is enough.
Yeah.
And in general, like, hey, like, not only that, you got to think about your future too. All those, to me, that generation that said enough is enough is more younger than we've ever seen
Absolutely.
in today's day and time.
It's kids,
Yeah.
To me, that speaks to the information available to us, right? And not only that, like you said, it was the perfect timing of so to speak, like a bomb to go off because everybody's out of work. Everybody is either out of work for load or they just, you know, their job is stopped. So they have a chance to go out there, and everybody's ready to get the fuck out the house.
Yeah. The perfect storm, as Khoa said.
Yeah.
For sure, it's the perfect storm.
So
It's ready.
and then nobody's afraid anymore because we got power in numbers. Why do you think looting has happened? Looting happens when there's so many people looting, robbing, that the police force at that moment in time can't do nothing because there's too many people going and doing it. Why do you think riots happen? They overtake what it is that. Why do you think the Seattle situation happened?
So I have a question for you. I asked Khoa this earlier. What do you think, or what is the difference to you between protesting and rioting? What's the difference?
That's such a I had the quote in my head, but it's actually rioting is a representation in a physical form of the frustration of people. We have told you, we have spoken to you, we have shown you This is going on.
Yeah.
So the system that you say we have to adhere to, we have to follow, that you say if you do 1A, 1B, steps 3, 4, 5, 6, that system says that if you show us and go through those steps, that's going to work. Then we see the direct results that actually works.
Yeah.
Then we're like cool with the system. But the moment that breaks down, after we've repeatedly said, "Hey, this is going on," and I've gone through steps that you say I have to do, and it still doesn't work, that's when riots happen. That's when protests happen. That's when looting happens. Because why do I have to keep up with the same system when it doesn't work for me?
Exactly.
Why do I have to adhere to these set of rules when by me doing that, nothing happens? So let's, if that, and I would never, on a personal level, never tell any of my brethren, my family, my friends, anybody to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not agreeing to it. And anybody that agrees to it is not on my level. But at the same time, let's understand why is it happening?
Martin Luther King has a good quote about it. I think I read it the other day, that rioting is basically the screams or the voices of the unheard.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
And there's another thing that I probably took away subconsciously was from Trevor Noah. And he said that basically the system doesn't work for some people or at certain times. So why adhere to the system that's not adhering to themselves?
I understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
And like I said, I would never tell anybody to do that. I don't think that. I actually believe in as militant as I sound, right? I actually believe that this is the best country in the world. And reason I say this, the reason I say that is embedded into our Constitution. We have the ability to change it. And I haven't read any other constitution in the world. I'll tell you that flat out. But from what I understand, we're the only constitution that allows that to happen.
That adapts.
That adapts like that.
Maybe slowly, but it adapts.
And speaking on that is like, yes, the Constitution does change slowly, but there are moments. There are moments,
pivotal
huge moments that drives people in our nation to change dramatically and drastically. Yeah. Right. And this is one of these moments.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
Hands
so
down.
I wanted to ask you what?
No, I was just gonna say probably one of the biggest ones in our lifetime. Go ahead.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
and
for
I
sure.
love the
I've
fact
never
that my
seen-
son is in this time because he sees this.
Yeah.
That we actually
I
have.
think it's hands down the biggest one in our
In
lifetime.
our lifetime, that
Right,
I can remember.
right.
I'm already thinking about how are we going to talk about this in 30 years? How are we going to talk about this in 40 years? How are you going to talk about this? I mean, you already have kids. Do you have kids?
2 daughters.
2 daughters.
Beautiful little babies.
How old are they?
5 and gonna be 3.
I say babies. I'm sorry.
No, they are babies. Though.
Okay.
They babies.
If you don't mind me asking, like, is this anything that is even being brought up now? I know they're still young, 3 and 5, but
So
are they
that's-
seeing what's kind of going on? Is how the world's changing or how it's
No,
different?
they don't have no conceptualization of it. First of all, the youngest one, absolutely not. She's
Okay,
just,
yeah.
SpongeBob SquarePants,
Yeah,
Peppa the
yeah.
Pig. And the older one, she knows how to ask questions, but we haven't deep dived into it. We
Okay.
had questions on race, but only in the sense of like,
Really?
she was, but little like small conversations based on like in class or like, why is her hair like this and mine's like this? Those kind of those are like black girl conversations. I've had these conversations.
Right.
They're common to me because I had
Yeah,
these conversations
yeah.
with my
Real
mother.
quick,
Like,
real quick.
why?
I want you to tell me what you say to them at that
About-
moment. Yeah.
About like
Why is my hair different than hers?
Well, basically, I'll tell her that number one, we were all born different, but beautifully made and divine.
Nice.
I tell her like her curls, she has curly hair like me, and I'll tell her like, this is your crown. You know what I'm saying? And never,
Love that.
ever,
Love that.
Want something else. I know it's natural to want what you don't have. I
Yep.
wanted straight hair.
Yep.
I remember like sneaking off and getting a perm, and my
Yeah.
mama like tripping on me. Like it was like you have these moments, and I was older when I did that, so she's very young. But basically, my goal as a mother is to teach her to love the skin she's in.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it. You speak life into your kids, they'll speak life into themselves. So you know, constantly reaffirm. Like we
Yeah,
have this
yeah.
power. We have
Love
these
that.
affirmations we do when I'm taking her to school in the morning. It's like, I am powerful. She'll repeat it. I
Yeah,
am powerful.
that's beautiful.
I am strong. I am a queen. I am intelligent. And you
love
just
the fact-
constantly
yes,
say
yes.
this.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I remember one day I was just feeling down or whatever like that. And, you know, I don't know if I was in the kitchen doing something. And she was like, oh, mommy, don't be sad. You're a queen. You're beautiful.
Love that. Love
Ooh,
that.
Yo, I'm talking
That's-
about
that's-
those little
that's-
priceless
if that's
moments.
not like a full circle moment right
Yo,
there.
it's the most
that's-
You know,
beautiful thing.
I do as a parent worry if like things are going in one ear out the other, or like they don't realize the gravity of what I'm trying to teach them or
Yeah.
trying to bestow on them.
Yeah.
But when something like that happens,
You let the-
you know you're doing something right.
Yeah.
The seed is starting to
absolutely.
blossom.
Yeah,
And I remember
absolutely.
thinking, I can't remember who told me, but they said your only job is just to plant the seed. Continually plant the seed, water it, plant it, water it. Eventually, it might be a year from now, it might be 20 years from now, but they'll never forget. Because when I think of like the things that pulled me through life, these are things my mom told me as a child. And these are like value systems, beliefs, like solid things that I stand on. These are my foundation. At the time, you know, of course, I probably didn't give it the respect and the gravity that it deserved, but yo, these are things that make me
Yeah.
who I am today. If she didn't speak life into me, how would I know how to do it to myself?
Yeah.
Right.
How could I
Yeah.
teach it to my
Yeah.
daughter?
Yeah.
You know, so
It just goes back to how can hatred and racism and prejudice just come onto you
absolutely.
out of thin air?
It
I mean,
doesn't. There's no way.
it could start with that same seed.
Seeds.
And
Seeds.
unfortunately, you know, if it's a seed of hatred,
yeah, it'll blossom.
it'll blossom. And I hate to think that that's how these things can start and they can have that domino or that snowball effect. And so, yeah, you know, I mean, it's a great point. And that's, you know, why I asked that. Thanks for sharing about your daughters. But I think it's just, yeah, like I said, it's just crazy. Have you talked about anything with your kids? I don't know.
How old is your son? The oldest
He's
one?
10.
Oh,
And
so
so
he's
we're
pretty.
we're constantly reaffirming him.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, and when I look at a partner in life, she has to have those same views that I have, not because I need to agree with her, in the sense of like when I say views, I'm talking about racial issues and racial views, because I want to make sure that it's not me that she's agreeing with. It's what she's teaching my kids, what she's bestowing onto them. Because if somebody doesn't agree with me or is even moderate for me, right, then it teaches my son to be moderate and apathetic. And that's the thing that right now that I'm having the biggest issue with. Like, if people want to stay on the sideline, is that cool? Is being like apathetic to this situation, is that okay? You know, do I never want that for myself, right? I never want that for my kids. And that's, like I said, it's a reason why I chose who I chose, right? Because she's not that way either. But how do I feel about somebody else? Like, are they comfortable in this situation because it works for them? Or are they comfortable in the fact that it's never going to change, so why fight?
Giving up.
You know, and it's like the apathy is there for different reasons, but like, am I okay with that?
Not in a partner. Not for me.
You know?
Pick
And
a
like,
side. You gotta pick a side.
I do know this. If you're my friend, you can't be apathetic. If you're somebody that I hold dear, you can't be apathetic. I need to know that you are trying to push this society forward, right? Into a better place. For not just for me, but for my children and my children's children. I need to know that I'm leaving this earth in a better place, right?
them, then you
So at the moment that and I've done this already, right? And I don't know if you've done this. I don't know if you've done this, but I'm going through Instagram, Facebook. Who has said what? Who has done this? Who is represented? Who hasn't represented? Who has been on the contrary? Who has been on the sidelines? And if you are not like is motivated to speak up as I am, I'm sorry. Like I respect that you don't want to get into the fight, but I can't mess with you.
Yeah.
I can't mess with you.
I have some things to say about that because I agree with your sentiment 100%. And like when we talk about like apathetic. Well, before I get into that, I just wanted to say you brought up a great point about how you teach your daughters to love the skin that they're in, love who they are unequivocally, never be ashamed of that and of how they're different or if they're this and whatever, just love the skin they're in. I think that's one of the things that is I think just not talked about enough, and maybe it's not even an issue that people are even aware of enough because it's so kind of digged into people's consciousness sometimes, and especially for black people in America, with the history of oppression that they've had, to naturally hate the skin that they're in sometimes. And it's deeply saddening to hear about from somebody not in your shoes, right?
Yeah.
To not be in their shoes, because how does that even, that sounds insane for you to be conditioned to hate who you are because you were portrayed to be like a representation of evil or bad or whatever it is to the eyes of someone else. And so this is the truth of some people, their whole lives, of how they look at themselves and how they raise their kids and things like that. So, like I said, more of that needs to happen. Not only that, but we talked about apathy. So I think empathy is the direct opposite of that. And I think that is what, just as important as loving yourself is having the empathy for people,
For others, absolutely.
for others, no matter who it is. And, have an open mind and to be able to listen and to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And I think that is just as important to be able to do that, to teach somebody to do that at a very young age, so they don't form their own prejudices because you didn't plant that seed early. But if you plant it early, and to say, because they're going to ask questions, they're going to wonder why are they like this? Why?
Yeah.
And it's okay to explain things, even if they have an ugly answer. It's okay to explain things. Of course, there's an angle and there's a way and there's a time and place to do it. And, like I speak from, of course, the standpoint of I don't have kids. So I don't know the exact way that I would do that, but I can only imagine how important that is for you to be in your shoes to do that with your kids. And I commend y'all for that. But I think that that's where it starts. And we talked earlier about how this generation, this younger generation, it's so crazy to me to think, me being a little older, I guess, to them anyway, I've had my prejudices against the younger generation, just how they are and how the things with like social media and blah, blah, blah. And I hate to sound like that because that's what I probably was to the older generation.
Exactly.
10, 15 years ago.
Yes.
For sure.
Doing whatever the fuck I wanted
Yeah.
and just all over the place. And all these people were probably like, damn, like, da-da-da, they don't know nothing, this and da-da-da. And I'm now sitting in these shoes having those thoughts. I'm like, I sound like an old geezer. And I have a lot of younger friends, that are growing up and getting out of adolescent into adulthood.
Yeah.
And I'm having a lot more conversations and talks with them. And so I'm a lot more empathetic now because they just grew up in a different generation with different things in their environment, with technology being completely different and whatnot. But one thing I will say is, especially in the past couple of weeks and everything, like I've had more hope than ever for upcoming generations.
Absolutely.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Just seeing the amount of speaking up and speaking out that people are doing is very encouraging, because it's not something that I thought my generation would have ever done the same thing if I was in their shoes in their time. I feel like, and it also pushes us, and it pushes our generations past us. That's why it's so great that we even are calling out our parents and calling out our elders, and we're trying to correct all the wrongs that we may have done, even if we weren't aware of them at the time that we did them. Right. So
I'll say this, we go into the example of
I still got to address your point, but go ahead.
right. I'm sorry, but with my wife, we go really well together. And as far as like reaffirming and teaching our son about the way you look at other people and about your own prejudices. And this is the perfect example that I'd like to use is I love Jordans, right?
Okay.
I didn't have the ability to get Jordans when I was growing up as a young little buck, you know. But as I got older and started getting into my own funds and my own money and my own jobs, I started buying Jordans, right?
Okay.
The first thing I did for my son when he
Buy
was
my
born,
Jordans, yeah.
J's left, right. He probably had like 20 pairs of J's between the age of 1 to 7, 8, whatever.
19 more pairs than I have.
Right. So I was as a parent, I was like, you always want to give your son the things that you didn't have and give them bigger and better.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So my son comes in one day and he starts talking about these other kids. And one of the first or the biggest things that me and my wife heard was, oh, but he doesn't have J's, so he's not cool. Woo,
Here we go.
Man,
Here we
did
go.
that not just it took the blinders off, right? From me, but my wife was the first person to be like, "Don't you ever give him another pair of J's."
Humble him.
He has
to be
and
humble.
that's what you need from your partner, though. You
Checks
know,
and
somebody
balances.
like,
You
hey,
better buy some K-Swisses the next day.
Sketches. Give him some sketches.
you know, and I can
That'll
honestly
humble him.
say that I think I have yet to buy him a new pair of. Let me see. I'm trying to think. Since about 7, he's 10 now. I bought him a used pair of J's. That since then, that's it. We went to a thrift shop and we just $5 for some damn near new J's.
Okay.
And it was a summer shoe. He could mess up and scuff, and it was nothing to be like
You'll feel it. Yeah.
like he's not overly proud or what is the right word? Like a diva about, because that was diva tendencies, like straight up like you
It's
can't
entitlement.
cocky, entitled.
It's entitled.
And we needed to check that.
Yeah.
You know? And since then I haven't bought him another pair of J's. Not new. And I'll give credit to my wife because she helped me take those blinders off, you know?
Yeah.
But
That's good, yeah.
what
So going back to what you said, so you were saying when you look at your circle, when you look at the people around you, you're going through Facebook and Instagram and whatnot, and seeing who is kind of speaking up and whatnot, and seeing who is, I guess, apathetic about things, and kind of making a list. Like I
unfollow
agree with
for sure.
I agree with the sentiment of it, but you're also holding too much power to what like social media is.
Okay. Let me clarify just real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, if I really cared about you, like if I was really into the show, right? If my favorite actor is Bryan Cranston, what's his name from Breaking Bad?
Bryan Cranston, yeah.
Cranston, right? If I would, this is just an example. I looked at what he said, what he posted, and if it was like, if you didn't post anything at all, I'm cool with that, right? But if you were more interested in posting something to benefit you, as far as money,
Okay.
or as far as that, then I was like, nah, bro.
I see. Okay, I'm a little more understanding to your point now because that makes more sense. But now I bring this up though because I've been seeing it more and more from all different types of people, right?
Yeah.
And it's weird because a lot of these people aren't the most vocal people to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Right.
they're becoming a lot more vocal now. And the one thing that I don't agree with is this cancel culture 2020 or whatever
Right.
you want to call it.
Right.
The shaming and the public shaming of people. And I'm not saying that some people don't deserve it because it's case by case. But there's a lot of times where it's so quick and swift, and it's so easy because how easy all these platforms are, how easy Twitter is, how easy and quick Instagram and Facebook is, to where if you're not posting anything, I'm gonna call you out. You're not my friend. Unfriend me. Blah blah blah. This and that. And when it comes to, I'll just speak on that specifically. Let's say like not posting or being a little more silent. And a lot of phrases have come out. Silence is violence, and silence is oppression, and your silence speaks volumes. I mean, there's been a lot of different points of views about that, and again, the sentiment is correct. Like the quote from, was it Desmond Tutu, and says, "When you are silent about a matter, that means you side with the oppressor."
See, I don't believe that. I don't
That
believe
you're
that.
like complicit, is it basically?
Right,
that
right.
you're complicit.
Complicity
No,
is.
but anyway, what I'm saying is, let's say like I'm talking physically, like being silent or not posting or about an issue, right?
Yeah.
To me, and I like I said, I think you agree with this. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not also alongside you fighting the fight, that they don't believe in what you believe in.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe they're doing it in a different way. Not everything is just posting on Instagram. It is a great platform and it's powerful and it's out there, but at the end of the day, it is also very fickle. And when you talk about really making change, there's a lot more out there that you can do. How do you know if I'm not posting on Instagram, if I'm not posting on Twitter, how do you know I'm not calling in to a police
100%,
station?
100%.
How do you know that I am not donating money? How do you know that I am not signing every petition there fucking is? How do you know that I am not reading my history, studying to see what has happened in the past, to try to formulate a plan of what I can do in the future? How do you know I'm not having a conversation with John, with my family, with the people my circle that I have, to actually make change?
Absolutely.
And it's like we live in this world where it's like, man, everything's got to be documented. If you're not showing it,
That's the generation.
if you're not showing that you're doing this, then you're not doing it.
Then it's never done.
And it's like,
But that's the culture, though.
and that's one of the things, like I said, why I bring it up, why you said that, because it sounded like you were kind of agreeing with them, but I think that you're more on my side. But I don't believe in the whole like I gotta cancel you because you're not fighting the fight right now, because also it leads into a lot of hypocrisy when you really look at it, if case by case, because a lot of these people that are calling people out
Absolutely
are
like,
just.
I'll say this, like if you, like I don't know. Okay, here I'll do this. If you are like of the culture, right? So for example, Eminem, Post Malone, they've used the culture to further their career, right? But in a moment like this, when you take black dollars, when you take black styles, when you take black culture, right, and you use it to your advantage, and you gain money, you gain publicity, you gain follows, you gain, a career,
Yeah.
a career, and you have nothing to say? Nah, it ain't about culture. It's about, it's to me, and I hate to use this word because it's so strong, but it's rape. It's rape without any sentiment of putting it back out and saying, I use this.
Let me
and
deposit.
anything like right.
Let me deposit something back. Yeah.
And they're completely public with the way they go about their careers, right? But in the moment that it takes where you have to stand for something and you don't stand up for the culture that you've been trying to represent.
But you really, first of all, so I disagree with y'all on that platform in the sense that I don't put that much stock in entertainers. They're not my leaders. I'm not looking for y'all to give me validation. Hold on. Or talking points or anything. You know what I'm saying? My leaders are different people, right? And just even over this quarantine. So I did this, I call it a lifestyle detox. I just cut out I cut my hair. I cut out social media. Yeah. You see the curls?
That's why I couldn't get you to answer my text. All right, cool.
So I just wanted to cut all the dead weight in my life. And I realized, the addiction to cell phones and social media. I was like, you know what? Let me just cut this out. Cut it out for about 3 weeks. It was the most liberating thing in my life. Now I get back on it. I swear to God, the only time I get back on it is specific reasons. But I don't look to these men to stand up for us. And really, what does it do if Eminem makes one Instagram post? That changes my life? That affects me? No. I don't care either way. I could care less. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what any. No, seriously.
No.
I look to y'all for y'all jobs. I like actors because I think you're a great actor. I look to entertainers because you entertain me. To be honest, I really could care less what they think on whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Because of the.
so I've kind of like 2 cents to put into that conversation.
All right.
It's a slippery slope. I mean, all this, everything we're talking about is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this, I think that's a great thing that you brought up, like the Post Malone and the Eminem. So, like, as you know, if you didn't know, Shay, I'm somewhat, I guess, a part of like the dance community. I do a lot of work for a hip hop dance studio here in Houston.
Okay.
And,
Let's shout them out.
Soundbox, what's up?
What's
Follow
up?
us. Soundbox.
Shout out Soundbox.
Soundbox TX on all social
Represent,
media,
baby.
on all social media platforms. And so the dance community is it's great, right? It's a lot of things have been coming up in it recently, how these leaders, these dancers, studios, choreographers, teachers, whatever, are starting to speak up and to kind of, make reform in our own way. The newest update on that is to rid of the word urban in how we describe like our classes, right? So a lot of it's a blanket term that has been used for a long time, urban choreography, because it is a blanket term because it kind of encapsulates a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And even I believe Spotify and a lot of Apple Music and
The
whatnot
Grammys, I think, also changed one from like urban R&B
urban
to
R&B,
contemporary
yeah,
R&B, like
yeah.
progressive
Yeah.
R&B.
Yeah. So, like we're becoming more educated in that, and I agree with a lot of the things of the changes that are being made.
Yeah.
And so, but one of the things I'll bring up, just like John was saying about how Eminem and Post Malone spoke up about what they do in their culture and how they have made a career and a living out of black culture. A lot of dancers are doing as well and speaking up and saying that. And I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Like, I think it's great to recognize like where your roots came from as far as like what you do and know the origins of that and whatnot. I will say, I think that it's like I said, I don't find it wrong at all, but I think it's also people just, how do you say it? Latching on a little bit too much just to the origins of things. And it's not even just black culture, just of anything.
Right.
And I'm not saying that hip hop or like dance and stuff was not completely and majorly influenced by a lot of black artists. I understand that completely, but does that negate everyone else that had a part to do with it? Does that negate that the cultures that it also had influence in it as well? There's a lot of other styles and whatnot. And like I said, I don't think that that's what they're trying to say. This is kind of like the Black Lives versus All Lives Matter
Argument, yeah.
debate and argument. But again, I just think of the whole of the shaming of like, like when you think like, well, why aren't they saying something like, I don't agree with the sentiment of feeling like that just because they're not coming out with the statement.
They're not doing something
that's
underneath.
saying that. I don't think that they're disrespecting the art form or the culture, because it's bigger than exact the origin of where it came from, but also they might actually be respecting it and are very respectful and knowledgeable about it, but just not coming out in the way that I guess you or somebody else would have wanted them to, in a way of making it like if Eminem didn't make a post, if Post Malone didn't make a post, do you write them off now? Do you cancel them?
Do you?
Okay.
Answer the question. Do you?
No, like. Well, if you're asking me specifically, there's certain things that if I recognize that if you're asking people to bring in money and you're asking things of the culture, yes, I will cancel you. And I don't even care about the cancel culture and all that stuff. It's not that. It's just I'm not gonna mess with you. It's just
you're not gonna support.
I'm not. What do you mean?
Well,
right.
Pay
Well,
for a
I'm not
CD,
telling anybody else not to go. I'm not trying to disparage their name. I just don't agree with their methods. If you're gonna take, you need to give.
Yeah.
Right? That's all. That's it. And if you don't give, I'm not giving. I'm not I'm not gonna let you take from me. But that's a personal thing, right?
Okay.
I'm not trying to blast anybody out. I don't call anybody out. I don't say anything. I gave examples, but that's a complete hypothetical. There's nobody. Bryan Cranston, Post Malone, Eminem. I went out and searched what Eminem and Post Malone had to say because I really wanted to hear what they had to say, and they both came out and said their piece. So I give them that. But my question is, okay, let's take away from you said about celebrity and liberation from all that stuff, and they don't have too much weight in the way
They didn't have that much weight prior.
Right.
To be honest.
Okay.
Let them know.
But what about
They did.
on your personal level? You have friends or family or whatever. How do you feel about people being apathetic? How do you feel about like moderates not wanting to get into the fight?
But you have to understand, I'm different. Like I'm cool with everybody
Okay.
living life on their terms. I've had these kind of conversations with people, and they show you their side of apathy. But you have to understand where it comes from. They just think nothing will change. They're done.
But that's one.
They're over it,
That's
just
one.
like not voting.
Right.
They're over it.
Right.
They're over it.
Don't look at me.
No, you know what I'm talking about. But I'm just saying, the good thing about understanding is you can understand everybody's point of view.
Right.
How you live your life and what you think and whatever the case may be, that's yours. I don't judge people based on their opinions and how they live. If I love you, I love you. Like if I mess with you, I mess with you. Without
But even
question.
if they don't fight for you?
Fight for me in what way? To go marching? Is that supposed to be
No,
fighting for me?
no, like-
What is fighting for
like
me?
if
A
you-
post on Facebook? A 2-second
Wait,
Black Lives Matter?
right.
That's supposed to make me feel better? Like
Like if we both in the car.
Okay.
Right? We both in the car. And I'm driving. But they single you out. And I ain't saying nothing. And I let them take you to jail.
Oh, that's different. We got smoke.
No, I'm
that's different. That's different though. You're talking about like social media stuff.
No,
That's like a
I'm
physical
talking on
thing.
a personal level.
No,
Like, this
if
is
I'm
your
with
friend.
you, no, if I'm with you and you don't act accordingly, then yeah, you get cut off immediately. But that's different. But that's not what you were talking about. You were talking about social media, people posting.
know.
I go down
I know.
Facebook
I
and
get that,
Instagram and
but I was
Twitter.
trying
That's
to-
what you said.
So if you and Post Malone were in a car,
Right.
y'all
right.
both
I
get
don't-
pulled over.
I just want to clarify. I'm not trying to argue with
no,
you.
I'm talking
but
about, but you're talking about people like in my specific
Right,
circle.
right.
If I see any kind of disloyalty or anything like that, oh no, I'll cut you off in a second. I carry scissors for a living. Like I'll cut you off. It's nothing. I don't care. Anybody's expendable outside of my kids or my mother.
I
Anybody
just deal with
is
so
expendable.
many people. Hey, what about you, Khoa? Because I deal with so many people that I can't just be like, like
yeah. I just, like I said earlier about Asian Americans, I think we have been notoriously apathetic to things that I think that don't affect us, right? And I really don't know why. I think it's just kind of how it is. And but I will say that I know this about myself and pretty much any Asian American I know, that if we ever feel like our circle is like being threatened, then we will be the first to defend
It's
our
gang,
people.
yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
good.
So the difference now that I am seeing that is coming out to light and being a lot more common is we will not only stand up for us, we will stand up for what's really right for whoever is around us.
Right.
No matter what color, creed, religion, sex, or sexual orientation that you are. And I'm trying to open myself up to more of that as well. I think I've always stood, to me in my eyes, I've always stood up for what's right. You know, my set of morals, I've always never been afraid to speak on what I believe is right. I don't go out and pick the fight,
Yeah.
but if I would like to think that if I ever see an injustice, if I was ever in one of these videos that have been, that have been circulating social media, if I was in that park with Amy Cooper, I would have fucking said something. I would have done something, but definitely in my circle, I'm doing that more actively now,
Good.
more than ever, speaking out and speaking and just having conversations and just seeing, really right now, the first step is just seeing where everybody's mind is and like what they know, what they understand, what they're open to, what they don't understand. And even myself, there's a lot I don't understand. I'm not saying that I know everything at all, but that's not our job is not to know everything. Our job is just to be open-minded enough to learn and to try to do the right thing as right as possible on a human level.
Absolutely.
Not just on a how's this going to affect me, but on a human level. So that's the part where I'm telling myself that's the role I need to play right now, in educating myself and others as best as I can, and just to speak up more, on the things that you see that are wrong, that are fucked up, that are happening. And yeah, so I would like to think that, if and when that does happen in my circle, that I'll speak out just like y'all would. And I would like also to think that the circle that I do have already doesn't have much of that, which is a good thing, and which is, one of the things that you realize that when you get older, you cut that circle down, and you make sure that it's tight, and that you really fuck with those people, and that they fuck with you. And we talked about you talked about how you and your wife, and talked about how important it was for y'all to have these points of views be the same, as far as like wanted to make the world a better place when you leave, and that's the imprint that you want to leave with your kids and whatnot. That's the same thing I've been saying for a long time, that I've known that about myself. I don't want you in my life if you don't want to make me a better person and to make yourself a better person.
Yourself primarily.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to put me first like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, but you don't. It's always me first. But but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
like
100%.
what are you doing? Like, what can you do for me if you're not actively doing that for yourself and the people around you?
Exactly.
And that it speaks so much volumes, but it's not as clear cut to that as to some people. And that's what I want to try to bring out more and more for my circle, my family, my friends. So whereas before, like I said, very apathetic, maybe, hey man, I believe in letting you do you, letting you live your life how you want to live. I never want to tell somebody how to live their life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think more so now than ever, there's a way that you can interject in a way that is not overstepping a boundary.
Yeah.
And that is just like empowering them and empowering the world, just to
And
be like,
educating them.
and
at the same
educating,
time. Yeah.
to say, hey, like, have you thought about it this way? Or why do you do this? Or why do you think like this? Like,
Absolutely.
and just starting with the conversation and then listening. Because everybody has a different reason for why they think the way that they do, or they do the things that they do.
Yeah.
And let's say they didn't know. That's telling in itself. That if you act a certain way, and it's very polarizing, but you act a certain way and you have no idea why you do, or you have that point of view, that should tell you something. And so that's a perfect time to kind of sit and reflect on it and say, hey, well, is it right? Is that right to think like that? Or what is right? What is right and wrong to you? Because everybody's right and wrong is different.
Yeah.
Everybody's morality is different. There's no, as black and white as something is to me, is not the same to you. It's not the same to her. It's not the same to everybody else,
Yeah.
So that's the role that I tell myself now that like I need to play, especially for, if and when I do start a family, whatever that is, that's something that I want to make sure that my kids and that pass on, because I want to make the world a better place for them. But it starts
100%.
with us, and it starts with
For sure.
it starts with me. I have to make sure that I'm not only just telling them the right things, that I'm doing the right things as well.
Yeah, because the funny thing about kids, they'll probably forget a little bit about what you say, but they'll never
Don't
forget what you do. They'll never forget what they see.
Right.
So that's something to, walk the talk.
Yeah. So that phrase, "Do as I say, not as I do," has always been very, very tricky.
Yeah.
I've heard that since I was little.
Yeah.
Not that my parents have said it to me, but I've heard it just from media and TV and movies. And I was like, I get what they're going for, but it's very tricky, because you can literally use that to do whatever the fuck you want.
It's like a blanket. Yeah. And it's counterproductive.
Yeah, yeah. Although I understand, and it's very circumstantial, but I understand where there are times where it makes more sense, where, people are literally in positions that they don't want to be in whatsoever, but they're trying to make it a better world for their kids specifically.
Absolutely.
And so they don't want them, you know, how many stories have you heard of this, of just people that want their kids to have a better life to not have the life that they had at all.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's why that they would say something like that, because they're just in the position that they are, unfortunately, due to whatever circumstances, you know. Yeah.
No, for sure, 100%. I think that the sentiment that you leave is something that you're ahead of your time. I didn't think like that. Well, I always wanted to be a good person. I always try to think introspectively. You're ahead of your time in the sense of like you don't have that family yet, and you're working on that. But when something clicked in my head was the moment that my kid was born, and now it's not selfish. It's about leaving this world a better place for them. And through me bettering myself, I'm bettering him.
Absolutely.
And my kids and my daughter. You know, and at the end of the day, you know, my legacy will be my kids and the way they think and the way they go on about their lives and so on and so forth. So like I said, you're ahead of your time. Now, we're you know, gonna wrap this up pretty like real quick now, but I do want to make sure that you, if you have anything else to say or anything else to add, I know we've had a long conversation, but I don't want you to feel like you didn't get everything out that you wanted to.
No, I thought this was a very fruitful and productive dialogue, and yeah, I just feel like just love, y'all. It's a very simple word, but that's really all it is. Just love your neighbor like you love yourself. Do right when you see wrong, you know, and stand up when you called. Period.
Ooh, I like that.
I think
I
that's
like
that's
that. Stand
that's
up
it.
when you're called.
You know what I'm saying? That's it though.
One thing I would say about you is and I reiterate this for myself too, because I love to talk, right? Obviously. But
Man,
one
you
of
made a podcast just so you can hear your own voice.
exactly, bro. I have it on repeat. Okay. Anyways, one of the tenets that I try to force myself consciously to do, even through this conversation, is say something. Okay, you got your piece, but then shut up and listen. And I think she does a great job. I watch her conversate with people, and when I say navigate the room, like obviously she got here before I did, right? You've never met her. I'm over here low key getting upset, like she's talking to my friends, like you can't have my friends. You know, like they're my friends. Because she navigates the room so well. She can walk into any room and just be like, hey, how you doing? Hey, what do you think about? And she's without, I'm not trying to tell you to shut up, but that phrase just keeps popping in my head. She shuts up and listens. And that right there is so powerful because you learn. You learn people's way of thinking, their point of views. You get a little sliver of their walk in life. And and I think that's so important to gain empathy, to take away the apathetic nature that sometimes we walk with blinders on, and we actually like look around and see, hey, we're so much more alike than we are different.
100%.
You know, so if that's the one thing that I leave with my kids is as much as I love to talk, as much as they probably get tired of me talking to them, I would just want them to listen to people, listen to everybody has a story.
Yeah.
You know, so
For sure.
that being said, I don't know what else to get into. I mean, we have so much to talk about, but at the end of the day, I think this was a very good conversation and wanted to further the message and stuff like that. And I like that I got your point of view and your point of view. And unfortunately, Chris couldn't be with us tonight, but he really wanted to be, and he had so many things to talk about.
We'll get his point of view. We're not leaving him out. I think that this was great. Yeah, thank you, Shay, for coming on and being so gracious to bless us with your presence. But yeah, this is something I think that I take pride in with our show and the Sports Trap, that, you know, like we're not afraid to talk about these things. And this was not a sports show, even though we did touch on sports in general a little bit, that, like there's always room for these conversations, especially when they're needed to be had. And it's totally okay. And so this won't be the last time that we'll be talking about issues like this. I mean, it wasn't the first. Like we've delved into the whole Colin Kaepernick situation. We've delved into Daryl Morey and all that, and like we're not afraid to speak up about how we feel about these issues. So, you're more than welcome back anytime, and we'll have whenever we get Chris back on, we'll have his things to say. I know he had a lot to say, but this was already like I think a fantastic show. But there's always more to talk about. We didn't just do one show and cover everything.
Oh, of course.
Like unfortunately, this has so much history, and so much that we can talk about. But I think this is a great start, and it's so important that this conversation is just started.
Yeah.
At all, right? And so if this is the start of it for us, I think it's great. And then we'll build on it, and we'll get more people on and more points of views. And as things progress with how the world is going, and we'll see where the world is in a week or two, because it could be completely different from where it is today. So yeah, I mean, John, you got anything else?
Well, I just want to basically close the show with kind of like, when we look back on these moments, and especially with the sports trap and stuff like that, I really want to know that, and let it be known that we build our character and our morals and our codes and things that shape our ideals when it was inconvenient. That's what made us move and made us like really rethink things. And when I guess in this time when the hate was the most acceptable, because it's so easy to hate right now. We've talked about cancel culture. We've talked about, left and the right, and, Democrats and Republicans, everything's so yes or no. But I want us to know that we're in a conversation of unity and trying to get together and further getting to know everyone a little bit better. And when there was oppression, we all stood up and said no, right? And so I'll leave with this quote from Martin Luther King. And it's so easy right now in these times to do that. But one thing that stuck with me was, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in a moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. So with that being said, I think that if one of the reasons that I made a sports topic show is that what the players do in these moments that cause controversies shows what my ideals are, my morals, and my values. And so, when I look at somebody like Jackie Robinson, I would love to say, and I pray if I'm ever in that situation or any type of situation, that I would have cheered Jackie Robinson on. I would have raised my fist with John Carlos and Tommy Smith. And, I would have agreed with Muhammad Ali dodging the draft, and ultimately kneeled with Colin Kaepernick. I would love to say I did that, and I'm 100% grateful that I live in these times to be able to do that, with this platform to be able to do that and to share it with you guys, honestly. And of course, Chris too. So that's pretty much
happy to be here, bro.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. For sure, it was.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you guys have anything else to say? All right.
That's
well,
it.
July 14th, go out and vote.
All right.
Straight up.
By the time this comes out, you would have already had to register. So,
yeah.
Whoops. Hopefully you did.
Hope so.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. I really appreciate you taking this time. If you're still here, like, thumbs up, give us a share, subscription, and all that jazz. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Or day, night, whenever you watch.